All right, guys, welcome back. This is Daniel. Welcome to our third and final module of the Raising Capital Mastery mini course. So hope you guys got a lot of value so far, and more importantly, hope you guys actually apply it and do the things. So now we've got our ideal client, we've got our marketplace, we've seen what that entails. We've done a lot of digging in terms of what is our product, what is our offer. Well, now we got to know, okay, so now that we have something to sell, now we have something that people want and we know who we're selling it to, now we got to figure out our distribution channels, right? So even companies with all that information, they know who their ideal client is, they know what their offer, what their Grand Slam offers, what their product, all these things. Well, you still have to discuss your distribution channels. Are you going to get it through YouTube ads? Are you going to do Facebook ads, right? Like there's still things that need to be done logistically to be able to amplify what you have, right? So you know what you're amplifying is good, it's clear. Now we got to talk about distribution. So let's go to the whiteboard and let's draw this out. So here's what I call my system of distribution. And I do it in two different ways. I have passive and I have active sources. So let me give you a really quick analogy on how this will work. So imagine you're going fishing, right? So you're going fishing and you got your pole and you're in the river, and let's say that you spend 6 hours, right? So you go from 10 a.m. all the way to 4 p.m. fishing, and you catch 8 fish. All right, so you did really well. Like, hey, that's awesome, right? That's more than 1 fish every single hour. Okay, then you see me walking up right next to you. I pull something out of the water, and it's a trap. It's a fish trap, and I catch 8 fish. Now, how do you feel in that moment? Probably really, really bad, right? Like, not good. Like, wow, I was here for 6 hours. This guy literally just walked up next to me, caught the same amount of fish, but he got to go about his day, right? Now, here's my point to you. If you want to raise capital and you want to catch the big fish, right, going back to our metaphor, you want to be able to do both. So you want to do both passive sources where you have investors, you set up systems where you have investors be sent to you, hence the investors that I get today, right? Like I get 1 or 2 investors every single week that will email me. I was just going, hey, I saw you on this podcast, or I saw you do this, or hey, I'm part of this. I'm interested in investing with you. And then you have your active, right? So these are things that you're waking up every single day. You're going to catch the fish. Get your pole out, right? You're catching the fish. This is the fish trap, which is passive. Okay, so let me run through with you guys some ideas and also some things that have worked for me. So these are proven things that you guys can do on both ends of the spectrum. So the first thing that you can do on the passive side is start a podcast. So this is something I used to do. I focus more today on our YouTube channel, which I'll get to here in a second, but start a podcast. There are a lot of friends of mine who got a lot of their investors because of their podcast. So I have a friend of mine named Joe Fairless who, he runs a podcast. I think it's called the Best Ever Real Estate Investing Podcast or something like that. And he was sharing with me the amount of investors that he gets because of the podcast, and it's astronomical. It's really, really, really good. And by the way, when it comes to your podcast, figure out, hey, my ideal client, my dream client, what type of podcast are they going to listen to? Is this even the right avenue for me to go? Does my ideal client even listens to podcasts? Is that the thing they spend the most amount of time on compared to all the other things on the list? Another thing was newsletters. So this is actually something that I did a lot early on in my career. Why? Because I knew, for one, my doctors, my ideal client, were very busy people. So the newsletter that I had was, hey, for a lot of you busy doctors or busy people working a high W-2 income job, what I do is I research all the market and finance news that's related to real estate or whatever every week. And I summarize it in 1 or 2 pages. That is very valuable for someone like a doctor or a high W-2 income earner because they're busy, right? Any chance they can get to save time and be able to get all the news summarized, for them it's a plus. And what do you know? A lot of them eventually say, hey, I love the newsletter. Do you have any projects for me to invest into? Another one is YouTube. So obviously this is one that has benefited me tremendously. I've gotten many, many investors because of my YouTube channel. And what's scary is that we post anything finance related and people still reach out to us because they find out some way, shape, or form that I do real estate. Like, I think it'd be really cool one day if I just did a video and at the end of the video, like, hey, I've got this real estate deal. Anybody interested in investing? Obviously, everything being SEC compliant. I'd be shocked if I don't get at least 50 or 100 people that would say yes, or at least be interested. And again, guys, it's all about gearing it towards your dream client, your ideal client. So there are 3 ideas for you. And by the way, what you can do is if you start a podcast, newsletter, or YouTube channel, think about the people in your network already that kind of fit the dream client mold, and ask them, hey, what resonates with you the most? Is it a YouTube channel? Is it a newsletter? Is it a podcast? Here's how I would do each and every one of them. Which one would you listen to most often? And could you help promote it, right? Because there's a lot of people who align with who you are. I'm sure if you're a doctor, you have doctor friends. If you're an entrepreneur, you have other entrepreneur friends. So this could be a great way to start. Get your first 10, 15 people subscribing to your newsletter, podcast, or YouTube. And if you do a good enough job, which if you're gearing it towards your dream client and you're writing down, hey, what's my big value play here? You will have tremendous amounts of success. Tremendous amounts of success. All right, so now let's move to the active. So I'm gonna shift the board here, get a little bit more room. So here are the things that I used to do actively that helped me get a lot of great investors. As a matter of fact, the strategies I'm going to show you guys right now probably accounted for about 70% of all my investors when I was younger. Nowadays, it's more passive, right? Because my YouTube channel has gotten a lot bigger, right? I've been doing certain things for a longer period of time. So of course, my audience has gotten bigger. But when I first started out, 70% of all my investors were from the active sources. So I've got 3 things that you guys can do. Number 1 is networking events. Now, I'm not talking about networking events or meetups that pertain to real estate. You can still find great investors there, but the key word here is events, right? So it actually bothers me that I miswrote this. There you go, events. There we go, much more clear. And the reason being is the reason why I emphasize this word, because at the end of the day, what are the events that your dream clients are attending? So if your dream clients are doctors, well, look at medical meetups. Look up things that doctors would go to. Now, obviously, don't go in there guns blazing, but hey, who wants to invest in my deal? You got to build relationships. Take people out to lunch. Take people out to coffee. Let them know, right? So I remember I used to go to medical meetups. I used to go to meetups that doctors would go to. And sure enough, like half the people there would be doctors. And I'd say, yeah, I'm actually a real estate entrepreneur, but I'm here because I'm more interested in learning about my health and bettering my life, which I was. That was authentic. I truly was. Now, granted, while I was there, I built a lot of great relationships. And I took people out to coffee, to lunch, to dinner, to breakfast. And I got to know them and they got to know what I do. And all of a sudden, they're like, hey, I'm interested in that. Well, of course you are, because you're my ideal client. And everything that I do, my offer, my strategy is geared towards you. So of course you're going to resonate with that. And of course you're going to say yes. Okay, so that was 1, networking events. I did that a lot. I think I used to do like 2 or 3 a week. I kept myself busy for sure. A lot of meetings, right? And that's like actually one of the ways where you can gain a lot of momentum is by starting to do these things. And the world's back to normal kind of, and you can kind of do the 2 to 3 weeks now, right? In terms of different events. If you're in an area where maybe you don't have as many events, find virtual ones. Find ways to network virtually, right? There's ways you can make it happen. Secondly is warm market. So going to friends, family. Now there's appropriate ways of doing this. What I typically do is I'll send them a text or an email, and this is actually part of a larger technique that I teach my coaching clients called the list technique. And this is actually a technique that students have used to literally raise $1 million in the span of 7 days. 7 days, 10 days, 15 days, you name it. No more than 30 days. I had 2 students, one that stick out to me. One raised $950,000 in 1 week. Another raised $1.3 million in, I think, a span of 21 days. So this stuff works. So what I typically advise people do with warm market is, send them a text initially. Step 1 is send a text and say, hey, John, hope everything's doing well. Long time no see. Would you be against having a 5-minute conversation? Just want to pick your brain on something that I think you would find really interesting. And then what I usually do is in that first, let's say if the phone call is 5 minutes long, the first 2 minutes were dedicated towards the opportunity. And the way I would shape it is, hey, John, I know you're a very busy guy. I'm a busy guy. So I'm just going to cut the chase in terms of why we're having this call or why I wanted to call you. It's because, for the last 6 months, I've been working on this real estate investing business. And I've got a strategy. I've been working with the coach, right, and all these different things. And one of the things that is required for this strategy is I need investors who are going to be, I need people who are going to invest capital who will get a nice return and be part of these deals with me. So would you be opposed to maybe a 30-minute conversation to where we can talk about that a little bit more further? It's like boiling the frog, right? Like a lot of you guys fail at raising capital because you're trying to get them to do the capital raise like first, like from the get-go, right? Like you guys want the investor who's going to be like, hey, I'm already ready. That rarely happens, right? If anything, that happens for me maybe 10% of the time, and that's because I put my stuff out there, man. I've got a decent following. People know, right? So if anything, there's very few times where I get an email or a phone call where I'm like, hey, Daniel, I've got $500,000. I'm ready to go. Like that rarely happens for me. So I can't imagine what it would be for a lot of other people who don't have the same amount of audience and following in the database that I do. So, the problem is you meet and a lot of people just go to the capital raise right away. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to boil the frog, especially with your warm market, people you already know. You want to get them to say yes to a 5-minute phone call. And that gets them to say yes to a 30-minute meeting. And then that gets them to say yes to other things. And eventually then you get to the capital raise, right, where they're actually wiring in the money. That's what you want to do with warm market. That's really, really important, especially if you don't want to tarnish the relationship. And for me, that's what I'm worried about the most is tarnishing the relationship. So, first 2 minutes, you talk about the opportunity. And then after that, you get into catch up, right? So it's like, hey, how are you doing? How are things? Because what you talk about last, that's the thing that they're probably going to get away and think about. So you want to get them to say yes to a 30-minute conversation, which is a really easy yes. And afterwards go, by the way, how are you? How's Stacy doing? How's John doing? How's Greg doing? Do you still play soccer, right? All these things. That way you leave on a more relational and positive note than that. So that's how you want to approach your warm market. And last but not least, this is one of my favorites, centers of influence. And what this is you're leveraging the connectors in your life. We all have that one friend or we all have that one person in our network who just knows everyone. And for me, I've raised a lot of capital taking those people out to lunch, which they love, by the way, and just going, hey, Greg, so I've been starting this real estate thing and all this stuff, right? And one of the things that I need are people to invest in these deals. So would you by any chance happen to know anyone that right now, maybe they're sitting on a good pile of cash and they're looking to put it to work and they're interested in real estate investing and, but they want to do it passively, still get returns. Like, would you happen to know anyone? Chances are that person's going to say, you know what, let me give it a couple days, or you know what, I've got 2 people right now, let me think more about that. And at that point, it's just a simple follow-up. But I've met so many great, especially big investors. Like if you want whale investors, like I'm talking million plus in investable cash, which by the way, they're not whales, they're bigger accredited investors, but I've got investors today that have closer to $20, $30 million in cash that they want to invest. And then you go on to the institutions who have hundreds of millions of dollars that they want to invest. So, million plus, right? Like your average Joe probably doesn't know a whole lot of people with $1 million plus in investable cash. But say, hey, but this right here, centers of influence, this is how I got a lot of the bigger investors because it's selective. So it's just a matter of taking these people out to lunch, coffee, and saying, you fill them in, be authentic, fill them in on what you got going on in the world of real estate. And afterwards, just say, hey, by the way, would you by chance know anyone that just kind of is this, and this? All right, and make it vague to where they'll introduce you to as many people as possible, but still try to stay close to your ideal client list. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed those 3 passive ideas, 3 active strategies, 6 total things that you guys can start implementing and taking action on. But I encourage you guys to do those things we talked about in the first 2 modules and then do the material taught in module 3. So hope you guys enjoyed our mini Raising Capital Mastery course. Hopefully that was fun for you guys. It was fun for me. Hopefully I get to see you guys and connect with you guys soon. And until then, till next time.